Hello there and welcome back. This video is going to be about Flask and how you can serve files with the help of Flask. And there are basically two approaches. One is called sending files from disk, and the other is when you generate a file in memory and serve those files, which is not really like a common thing to do with Flask. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and I would like to introduce you to those. So let's create a directory. Let's call this Flask. Enter this directory. By the way, in the video's description you will find the URL for the GitHub repository where you can find the source files. So let's create a virtual environment called Flasky. And I prefer to create a virtual environment because it basically helps me keep the base Python installation as clean as possible. So if you are working on different projects, dependencies can easily get mixed up, and this simply prevents that. So now that we have the Flasky, we should activate it and pip install Flask. And once this is installed, what we can do is to basically open the Visual Studio Code text editor, and let's call this file downloader .py. And what do we need here? So for first, oh come on, all these dependencies and whatnot. Yes, thank you for the welcome. So first, from the Flask module, we would like to import the Flask class and the send file. And now we can create our application, which will come from the Flask class. And basically, now we can create our context routes. So app.route, come on. So the default context route is going to be called or handled with the index function, and we will simply return a string which will be an h3 HTML tag, and just simply welcome this user, whoever dares to endeavor on our web page. Now what we would like to do is to check if the name is equal to main. And we just simply call the app.run on host 0.0.0, come on, 0.0.0, and the port should be 5000, and the debug should be true. Alright, this is basically the skeleton of our web application. Let's run it. So Python downloader.py. If everything goes well, we can visit this URL in any of our browsers, and it should give us, come on, a response called welcome. Alright, but that's not what we are here for. So let's say that you have a new file, and this new file is going to be called test.csv. And the other file should be called test.json. So one holds CSV structured data, the other holds a JSON file. So how does this look like? What we have here is basically an ID, a type, and or let's call server, and the type. And let's just restructure it. So this comes basically from the GitHub repository, and just save it. Now the second thing is the test.json, and this is pretty similar to this. So basically it's a list, and this is what is going to be served. Now let's create a context route which is going to serve us files. How is it? Let's call it from disk. So app that route from disk, and we say that we expect a file name. So from disk should have a file, which will be none, and let's say if we have a file we would like to return. Otherwise, we would like to use the abort 404. So let's import the abort as well. And how does the return function works? So now what we would like to do is to use the send file. And this function takes a few arguments. First one is the file that we would like to serve. And as attachment should be true, and attachment file name should be an F string. And basically what we would like to do is to create a small one-liner for swapping out the file names, whether it's a CSV or a JSON file. So now we would like to do is to create the file name from disk dot, and here is where this comes into picture. So we would like to give it a CSV if CSV in file. Otherwise, we would like to give it the JSON. Okay, now we have a file name. What we would like to also specify is the MIME type, which should be either text/CSV or text/JSON based on the file's name. So now what we can do is to create this text CSV if CSV in file as text/JSON. And voila! Now if we go back to our web application and refresh it, we say that we would like to use the from disk test.csv. Not defined. What? I think I made a typo in my code. Let's see. So see if CSV in file, otherwise, and there is also going to be an error. Great. Now it should be working, and we have the from disk.csv, and we can open it with a notepad or something like that, and we have the answer that we were looking for. Let's make it a JSON. From disk JSON. Oh, all right. Anyway, so now if we refer to the, I don't know what, to anything other than what we are expecting, we will have the not found, which is coming from the abort 404. All right. Now we can serve files from basically the disk. What do we need to serve files from memory? What we need to do is to create this import CSV, JSON, and IO. So the JSON module will be needed for the JSON content, the CSV will be needed for the CSV content, and let's call this first we should define the in-memory data. So this is basically going to be a list of lists, and here we will have the ID as 0 and web server and Windows, and the second one is going to be 1, it's going to be app server, and it's going to be Linux. and the third one is going to be 2, and what did it go? DNS server. So DNS server, and it's also going to run on Linux. So now we have the in-memory data which we would like to serve. So let's create a context route, app.route /in-mem CSV, and call it in-mem CSV. So in order to serve this CSV data, here comes into the picture the CSV module. What we would like to do is to create a proxy. So this proxy is going to be using the io.string io. And basically what we would like to do is to create also a writer, which is going to come from the CSV writer. And it is going to write to the proxy. No, I don't need extension, thank you. So after that, what we can do is to write a row with the headers of the CSV file, which is going to be like ID, and we will use the server and the type. After we have written that, what we need to do is to iterate over our in-memory data. So for s in mem, come on, and we just simply use the writer that write row with the S0, S1 and S2. And after this is done, we can create a memory object or mem object, and it is going to be io.bytes io, and we would like to use the mem write to write out the proxy get value with an UTF-8 encoding. UTF-8, great. Now we can use the memsig. I don't know why it is needed, but basically this is how it is working. And we can close our proxy. And we can basically use our return function to send the file, which is going to be the memory object that we have created, and the attachment file name is going to be in mem.csv. And basically after that, what we can do is to specify the MIME type, which is going to be text /CSV. So let's go ahead and text /CSV and save it. Now if we go back here, what we can do is to restart this web application. It was already running, so it was not really necessary. And hit the context route. So what is our context route, you may ask? And basically this is the in-mem CSV. So /in-mem CSV. A bytes-like object is required, not a string. What could be the problem? Let's just compare it. Right row, it's fine. Memsig is fine. Where did that error occur? Line 32. So this is the line which has problem. Oh, hold on. I placed it in the wrong. So now we have our in-memory CSV with the appropriate content. So this is fantastic. So now what we can do is to add the next context route. So I want to show you the JSON part as well, because it's not really obvious. So def in mem JSON, and we would like to have a response which is equal to the iterations result of the in mem data. And basically what we would like to do is to append the following. So we would like to use the ID, the server, and its type. Sorry. And after we have built up our response string, what we can do is to use the IO bytes IO and use the mem write. And here comes the tricky part. So we use the JSON dumps, and we dump the response and encode it with UTF-8 encoding, and we use the mem seek 0 and return the send file. So now, hold on, we can copy this part. This is going to be a JSON file, and imem JSON, and basically it should work. So now we can use the in mem JSON. Voila, we have our JSON file. Oh boy. And that's technically what I wanted to show you. So what we can do now is to make it a little bit prettier. I have prepared a welcome page for you. So basically, test JSON, imem JSON. Well, you don't mind the class because I have like repurposed it from one of my other Flask applications. But now, if we reload the main home page, you can see that this just basically gives you an idea. So on the bottom left of the screen, you will see the URL. So now we have the from memory, from disk, from memory, from disk. And that's how you can serve files with the help of Flask. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.